All right. So today we'll have Nimesh give his talk on his research topic. And what we can do is we can shut all our videos except Nimesh so that the bandwidth is good enough. And then let's proceed with the presentation. All yours, Nimesh.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So yeah, hi guys. So today I'll be presenting about my research topic. I'll give an introduction to it because I've just started out. So it is so my research is based on prediction of parametric role in ships. So I'll be comparing mainly the traditional methods which are being used right now and try to develop a method which is based on artificial intelligence and try to compare them both. So before we go into that, I'll try to give an introduction, like explain what parametric excitation is. So yeah. So parametric excitation is they are basically oscillations which are driven by varying some parameter of the system at some frequency, and by changing this frequency at some parameter at some frequency, we can produce oscillations. So like at first it might seem a little counterintuitive that how we can produce oscillations without uh, applying any external force. So to get a better intuitive feel about this, I'll give an example. So everyone like must have played on swings in their childhood, right? So and I'm sure like everyone knows how to the trick of how to swing without putting your feet on the ground. Uh, so like, have you guys ever thought about how this happens without putting your feet on the ground and you're able to swing? So like the main reason is it is again involved based on parametric excitation. Yeah. So let's say that okay. Wait. Yeah. So this point is the pivot point about which we are swinging, and we have a center of gravity. Now this is, we can assume it as a simple pendulum, right? And the length of the pendulum is from the pivot point to our center of gravity. And this is also a parameter of the system. So let's see if we can swing by changing this parameter. And actually, in fact, that is what is happening. So when we are trying to swing, we'll try to like move our body in a way so that we are able to move forward, and that is actually changing the effective length of the pendulum. So at the center, we'll stand upright and no, we'll crouch down when we are standing, and like in the sitting position, we'll bend back or bend forwards. Now this like changes the effective length of the pendulum, and by changing the length of the pendulum, we are able to generate oscillations. Uh,
I love your pictures. Beautiful.
Thank you, sir. So is is everything? Did you guys understood here till here?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's see how this happens in ships. So so before that, let's see a demonstration of this parametric excitation and resonance. This was a experiment done by someone on, I found it on YouTube. So this is normal condition. The ship is moving in head waves, and we can see that right now there is no roll motion generated. There is only pitch and heave. Now they're going to change the frequency of the waves, and yeah, now we can see some roll motion being developed. Yeah. So this is a little of roll motion, but it is not very significant. Then give it a minute. Yeah. So now they are going to increase the wave height, and now see what happens.
And keep a count on how many wave cycles it takes for the ship to reach from a nominal roll angle to a very large roll angle.
Yeah. So right now it seems to be normal roll, and you can see it is increasing. Yeah. There. Now that is parametric resonance. You can see that within just a few roll cycles, the roll motion has gone, like it increased to a very high value. Okay. So yeah, now that is very difficult to like predict that this kind of roll motion is going to happen, especially when the ship is moving in head seas and you don't expect any roll motion to occur. Okay, so how does this happen? We have seen before that in the case of the swing, we are varying the length of the pendulum, and that is causing oscillations. So again, since we are saying this is parametric roll, there needs to be some kind of parameter which is being changed, right? So now, okay, yeah, this is kind of a spoiler. So our roll stiffness depends on the value of GM. So GM is calculated as KB plus BM minus KG. Now, KG is usually fixed for a ship because center of gravity won't usually change. Now, so BM is calculated as the second area moment of inertia of the water plane area about the x-axis by the displacement. And KB. So BM depends on the water plane area, right? So what happens when the ship is moving in waves? The water plane area will keep changing, and due to this change, the BM will also change. In turn, GM will change, and then in turn, what GZ will change, which will cause roll stiffness to change. So there we have our variation in parameter. So here you can see that when there's a wave trough at midship, the water plane area is more than the water plane area in still water. The green line is the still water water plane area. And when there is a wave crest at midship, the water plane area is less than what at calm water. Okay, so now we saw that in head waves, there is change in water plane area, which causes change in BM, which causes change in GM, and which causes change in roll stiffness. Now,
can you go back to the previous slide, Nimesh? Are these pictures computed by you?
No, I just picked it up from a paper.
It is always a good idea to list the sources whenever you take pictures from elsewhere. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, did everyone understand everything till now? If you have any doubts. No doubts?
No, Nagesh.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. we said that GZ is varying. So here, sir, I took this graph from your thesis.
Looks vaguely familiar.
Yeah, so here you can see the variation of GZ for a 4-meter wave. And yeah, so as the position of the crest changes along the ship, we can see that there is a variation in GZ. There is not a significant variation at 0 degrees, but as the roll angle increases, the variation also increases rapidly. So now this mainly causes, so this is causing the variation in our parameter. Now this variation in the parameter is going to generate excitation, and that is parametric roll. Yeah, and this is GZ curves for different wave heights. Okay. Yeah, so this is what happens in the case of ship in head waves. Okay, so any doubts till here or questions?
Everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, so so there are certain conditions for parametric resonance to occur in ships. So the first condition is that the encounter frequency of the wave should be nearly 2 times the roll natural frequency. Then the wavelength should be approximately equal to the ship's length. So when this happens, we can see the variation in water plane area increases significantly. Then the wave height should be greater than a certain critical value, and the roll damping again should be low. Now so this hull geometry is also an important factor in the occurrence of roll parametric resonance. So the ship should have a flat transom stern. So this is the stern part of the ship. So you can see that the transom, it changes very quickly as you go down. So it becomes very flat, and then you have this this part for our propeller and propeller arrangement. And this is at the aft, and in the forward we have this flow bow bow flare. So this kind of geometry is usually seen in container ships. You guys must remember even a KCS hull. So even that has something in the forward part and the aft part, the geometry is similar to this. That is because it is a container ship, and container ships are like the hull is very streamlined so that it is able to achieve high speeds. Now this kind of geometry will result in the high variation in water plane area due to waves. Yeah, so now let's look at a pendulum, and let's see if we can invert the pendulum. Like pendulum, we know that it is stable when it is in the downward position, and let's see that if we can make it stable in the inverted position. Yeah, so okay, so this is our pendulum. We are going to drive this pivot point up and down with amplitude of epsilon. Are these equations visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are going to drive the pivot point with a amplitude of epsilon and a frequency of omega. Now, so this is the differential equation which represents this system. So this is second derivative, and delta times sine theta is our normal pendulum equation. And now we have added this epsilon times cos omega t, which is like we are changing the stiffness of the system periodically. So again, we should expect some kind of parametric excitation due to this. Yeah, so this equation in the downwards position, the x is 0. So x is the angle it makes with the vertical. So at x is equal to 0, we can approximate sine x as x minus x cubed by 3 factorial and all. So linear pendulum will be sine x is approximated to x. And in the inverted position, we'll have x is equal to pi. So our the sine term will become minus sine x, and that can be approximated to minus x. Okay, now this equation, this is called as the Matthew equation. So let's look at the case of the inverted pendulum. So this is our equation for the inverted pendulum, and let's assume that we are going to drive this using a square pulse with a period of t. Right. So for time between 0 to t by 2, our equation will become this. So we change, remove sign and just put epsilon. And for t by 2 to t, it will be this. Right. So any doubts?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when x is equal to pi, you are saying sine of x plus pi is this.
So
Okay.
Can you repeat?
So I see that when you say x is equal to almost equal to pi, you're giving an
Yeah.
expansion for sine of x plus pi.
Yes, sir.
But your equation actually only has sine of x, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So
Like we are writing this equation for the initial condition at x is equal to pi. So we are changing the angle to x plus pi, so that our initial conditions become the inverted case.
initial condition becomes the, no, I think the definition of x is changing then, isn't it?
X is still the angle made by the pendulum with vertical, but it is 0 at inverted condition.
Correct. Okay, correct. Okay, got it.
Anything else? Okay. Yeah. Now, so this is called as the Floquet discriminant, and I'm not going to explain the math behind it because even I'm not very clear with that. So the Floquet discriminant is basically used to to see the stability of the system. We calculate this, and from that we can say if the system is going to be stable or not. So yeah, so for our system, this is the solution, and we'll calculate so x1 and x2 are the two fundamental solutions of the system with different initial conditions. Yeah, so we'll do some complex math at this point and then come up with the Floquet discriminant for our system. And this is the Floquet discriminant. And yeah, so from this we can see that when our t becomes 0, or our frequency of oscillations becomes infinity, we can see that it will tend towards 0, 2. Sorry, yeah, the Floquet discriminant will become 2. And as per the this theorem, if the Floquet discriminant is 2 or less than 2, the system is said to be stable. Okay. Yeah. So any doubts still here?
But why are we introducing all of this?
Just to show that inverted pendulum will be stable.
How does this tie to that? So what is X1 and X2 here?
Yeah, so X1 and X2 are like the fundamental solutions of this evaluated at different what do you call it? Initial conditions. So X1 is I think it is 1 at t is equal to 0, and the derivative is 0 at t is equal to 0, and X2 is inverse.
And this is for the square wave case.
Yeah, only for the square wave case.
Okay.
So like we took the square wave and we are saying that if the frequency of the excitation is very high, the Floquet discriminant will go to 2, which according to the theorem means that the system is stable at that point.
Okay, how did you get those two equations?
I took it.
C1 and C2, C3 and C4.
I did not calculate them, sir. I took it. It was already there, so I just took it.
No, but how did we get it? Is there a basis for it?
Sorry, sir?
Is there a basis for why it should be exponential square root of delta plus epsilon times
Like,
t?
if we solve this system, we'll get that solution.
Because an exponential system will satisfy this equation.
Yeah.
Right? That's why.
Yeah.
But what we don't know in the next slide is what are C1 and C2. Right?
Yes.
Unless until you put in your initial conditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we use different initial conditions for X1 and different initial conditions for X2, and then calculate those coefficients.
And then your Floquet discriminant is evaluating these solutions at some time capital T, which is the period of your excitation.
Yes, sir.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of, what is X2 prime?
It is the derivative of the second fundamental solution.
Oh, it's a time derivative of the second fundamental solution.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Nimesh,
But it is not clear. You have to come back and kind of tell why this discriminant is important.
Yes, sir. Even I'm not very clear about the math, but I just wanted to present the final conclusion from this.
Okay, but you have to figure it out at some point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, sure.
yeah, I just wanted to ask why you are using this Floquet discriminant to establish the stability of the system, right?
Yeah.
If it's stable or unstable, like
Yeah.
what? So this is a okay. I just wanted to ask why you're using this discriminant. There are other methods for nonlinear systems to describe stability, right?
Yeah, like no particular reason. I found this, like I wanted to present the final result from this. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is basically saying that now here for the inverted case, you can see that as the frequency increases, the solution will come to the Floquet discriminant will become 2. So if it is within these dotted lines, the system will be stable, and if it is outside, it is unstable. So here we can see that for both the cases, if the frequency is high enough, we see that the pendulum will be stable. Right. So yeah, so this basically says that the pendulum will...
meaning,
Sir?
Both cases meaning the two parts of the pulse.
Yeah, so that there are two cases. So One is the amplitude of excitation is less than the value delta, which represent the we can say that the stiffness of the system without any external excitation.
I
So it's
think you mean the natural frequency.
yeah, sir, natural frequency. Yeah.
In fact, the square of the natural frequency.
Yeah. So,
Could you explain the stability criteria again?
okay, so stability criteria is if the Floquet discriminant is 2 or less than 2. Less than or equal to 2, it is stable.
Less than equal to 2. Okay, okay.
Okay. It can be equal to 2 also.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That is asymptotically going to 2.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
okay.
So in the inverted case, so for both the cases of amplitude of excitation being less than delta and greater than delta, we can see that they are both stable, right? So now, like, we have made an approximation here that our excitation is square wave, and usually it is not square, it is somewhat like a sine wave, right? So could it be that just because of this approximation we are getting it as stable, or is it actually stable? So in fact, the system is stable, and there is an experiment where this guy shows how it is. So this is like a simple pendulum, and that is a jigsaw. So he's going to use that to excite the system. Yeah. Yeah. So he is, as you can see, is driving the system at very high frequency, and at that frequency you can see that it is stable at in even in the inverted position. Yeah. So yeah, so yeah, any doubts?
No, please go ahead. So
Okay.
you keep going ahead. If they have questions, they'll stop you.
Okay, so
Animesh,
yeah,
the inverted pendulum is achieved by using the high frequency, right?
sorry, tell again.
The inverted pendulum is achieved by using the high frequency.
Yeah. So we saw that here that at high frequencies it becomes stable.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so this was an example of how like parametric excitation occurs. So going forward, the steps for my research like will be to first to understand the traditional methods which are currently being used to like predict the occurrence of parametric role, and then research on the AI methods which are being used, and then come up with an AI based method for prediction of parametric role, and then compare the traditional and AI based methods. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, any questions?
I wanted to ask the inverted pendulum thing that you showed, how is that, and the ship's analysis, how are they related in some way?
So even the ship's system can be represented using the Matthew equation. Yeah, so this equation. So here our delta will depend on the GZ, which is the like the stiffness in the roll, and the variation in the stiffness is due to the change in water plane area. I haven't done the analysis yet using this, but yeah, it can be done, and we can analyze the stability of the system using the Floquet discriminant.
Okay.
I think the major question here is what is that discriminant and why should it be 2? Or why is the magic number 2?
Yeah, I haven't studied the theory yet of the Floquet discriminant.
Okay, usually from what I understand from Floquet theory is that you are looking at a period of the system. So whatever is your period of excitation, you're looking at the response of the system after that period.
Yes,
And you will find that usually that response will be some parameter, some scale value of the response at previous time t. So let's say that I know what the solution is of the system is at time t, and I want to see what is the solution at time 2t. Then the value at 2t will be some parameter multiplied by the value at t.
okay.
Right? If you go back to the previous slide, that happens because if you look at your equations of motion, it will exactly look the same. If I change the excitation time by a different time, my equation will look exactly the same. Cosine of omega t versus cosine of omega t plus capital T will exactly be the same thing.
Yes,
So the
sir.
dynamics at that point is kind of governed by the same thing. But it need not necessarily mean that the solution will be the same, because its evolution in time need not be the same. And the beauty of the whole Floquet theory tells you that whatever is that scaled parameter by which you're multiplying the solution at previous time step to get the solution at the next time step, if that value is greater than 1, okay, if its absolute value is greater than 1, then you're kind of seeing an exponential increase in amplitude.
Yeah.
And if that value is less than 1, then you're seeing it as a stable system where the solution is decreasing with every time step.
Okay.
And that scale parameter is nothing but the eigenvalue of what we define as what is called as the monodromy matrix, okay, which is kind of found by looking at all possible different combinations of basis functions and simulating them forward by time t and seeing where they evolve to. So suppose if I have two states, so this is a second order differential equation. So in which case I can have the displacement as 1 and the velocity as 0 in one case. And in the other case, I could have velocity as 1 and displacement as 0. And both of those conditions, how they evolve in time when I start from those initial values, will tell me what the solution is at the time t. And eigenvalues of that matrix is usually what will tell me whether the system is stable or not. To my understanding, that is what is Floquet theory.
Okay.
Okay? So it basically is looking at whether if I take independent initial conditions, linearly independent initial conditions, and I try to simulate the system forward by time t, I know that I'm going to see the same dynamics. The dynamics of the what we call differential equation is going to remain the same after a time period t, but the solution dynamics, what happens to it, you're assessing by looking at linearly different independent initial conditions.
Okay.
But I am not sure what you mean here by Floquet discriminant. And this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Where have you found this?
There was a YouTube video by some professor.
Okay. Would you mind sharing that link with me later on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now I'll leave it for your friends to ask some more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nimesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so in ships, when the parametric excitation happens, like what are we exactly trying to do? Like, are we trying to analyze the response as to after which we pass through it? What would be the roll motion, or like are we also interested in controlling the roll motion of the ship?
So right now I'm trying to predict the parametric roll before it happens, so that we can inform the captain of the ship and he can take required maneuvers. So control, like,
Yeah, so like
yeah.
provided you know what would be the roll prior hand before it happens,
Mhm.
so how would you be controlling it? Like ship does not has propellers at the uh, starboard and port side, right? So how
So
do we actually control the roll motion of the ship?
yeah, so we saw here that one second. Yeah. So the roll resonance is dependent on the encounter frequency. First of all, it should
Okay.
be nearly 2 times the roll frequency. Now we can change this speed of the ship such that we are able to change this encounter frequency and thereby remove this condition of the parametric resonance occurring.
Okay, so we can only control the forward speed of the ship, right? Through that only we would be able to minimize or
That
maximize.
is one way, and then there are other ways also, like by active. We have U tanks, right, in the ship. So using that also, there was one study in which they used this U tanks and changed the roll damping. No, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it was done, but it was done using these U tanks so that the roll motion is controlled. But even those are not very what do you call, like, not very effective when the roll motion becomes very high. So it has to be applied in the start itself, and only then we'll be able to control. Like, control part, I'm not very sure of how it is done. So I'm focusing on trying to predict the roll motion.
Okay. Okay.
So what is the objective of your study? At the end of the day, what is the thing which you are trying to get as the output of your research?
So I should be able to predict the roll motion, like parametric roll occurrence of the parametric roll uh, within a few roll cycles, and so that and uh, such that we can have enough time to take this uh, like counteract that.
Okay, and you also told that you would be using AI-based methods in order to solve this study, right? So can I
Yeah.
give a
So
brief as to how you would be using AI to solve this
yeah,
parametric?
like I have to actually come up with that. That is at a later point. Like, first I'm trying to understand how it is being done traditionally, like until this point. So the various methods used, and I'm hoping that from that I'll be able to get some idea on how I'll be able to apply this AI and try to improve that.
Okay.
Nimesh, can you be a little bit more specific? What will be your input, which you will need in order to detect whether it is going to have parametric roll or not? What are the inputs you are considering?
Uh, Maybe I'm not sure. So, like, I was thinking that the wave, like the wave elevations until that point, and the role the ship has undergone until that point, and we'll look at the time history of this and then try to predict if it is going to occur.
So you're like taking a kind of a window of wave time history which the ship is going to experience in the future and then predict
Yeah, something
whether
like
it's going to be experiencing parametric roll or not.
yes, sir.
Right? Okay. All right.
Sir, I have one question. You told that wave time history will be required. So how do we get that data, the wave time?
In reality, what happens is in reality, you don't know the wave time history. That is correct.
Hmm.
Right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
typically, you do have some methodologies which try to predict predict the, what do you call, there are methods which are available where you have a forward-looking monocular cameras, stereo cameras, which can try to give a sense of what is the waves that you're going to experience in a few seconds. Similarly, there are also methodologies which try to look at a radar-based detection algorithm. And this is something which the US Navy has been looking at quite in the past, okay? Where they're trying to look at a radar cross-section image and figure out what is the current wave elevation in the future over there, which is going to propagate towards the ship, and what am I going to experience in a few seconds. So it is based on this idea that if I do know the wave elevation in some sense, if I do get an estimate, can I predict whether I'm going to experience parametric excitation or not? So that if in case I do experience it, can I take a corrective action quickly? Because you see that in that video, we saw that almost within 3 to 4 cycles of roll, you're looking at a very large excitation.
Yes. Yes.
So even if you think that the roll period of a ship is about 25 seconds, nowadays it may be a little bit more as well. So say even 25 seconds, 4 cycles will be 100 seconds. So that's still less than 2 minutes, right? And that's quite a challenging time for the ship master or the captain to take a corrective action so as to get away from this. But as probably Srinik pointed out, the easiest way to get away from such an excitation is probably to change course, change the direction of your heading, so that the waves are not coming in the head direction and they're coming at an angle and their encounter frequency is changing. Okay, because the encounter frequency should really be the key with respect to having 2 times the roll natural frequency. By changing a direction, you're changing the wave encounter frequency. That's the fastest way to probably do it. But still, 2 minutes is quite a low time in order to do and make that course correction happen.
Yes, sir. Like I read in your thesis about the APL China ship in 1998. They also tried to change the wave, the ship heading, but still they could not escape that.
Correct. They were not able to escape it within the given time. And in fact, at that time, they even tried to, move into the head waves. In fact, the captain thought that moving towards a 0 heading angle, a 180 degrees heading angle will be better, because then they'll have no roll, but that actually just made the problem worse.
Yes.
All right, any other questions, comments? How many of you thought that was very unintuitive behavior for a ship to experience?
Yeah, like you don't expect the roll motion to happen with head waves.
Correct. You typically don't, and then that's the downside, that it leads to the maximum roll usually in the head seas.
Also, like Nimesh's presentation was, I felt very good. Like he was showing all those videos and all that.
Yes, but I do have one comment for you, Nimesh. You don't want to put memes in your presentation, especially a professional presentation. Okay, you can put videos which are relevantly talking about the technical aspects of your problem, but typically it's not a good idea to take memes and put them in your presentation. For a fun presentation, yes. For a technical presentation, a big no. Okay. Also, whenever you're taking pictures from somewhere, you have to make sure to cite those pictures, because they are not your work.
Yeah.
Because if you don't explicitly say so, then that becomes your work, and that is what usually constitutes plagiarism.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Something to keep in mind and make sure it doesn't happen next time.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
So I had a question. Like, just say we have a ship and it's currently experiencing parametric roll. like, is there a way by which we can avoid that at that instant itself? Because once the ship starts to roll extensively, we might not be able to change the heading angle pretty fast, right? So how can we minimize that in case we experience parametric roll?
Yes, and that's what kind of Nimesh gave you a small one idea that typically you may have a U-tanks, anti-roll U-tanks installed on the ship, which may be activated, or you may have what you call stabilizer fins along the side of the near the bilge of the ship, which may be extended out in order to compensate for this roll motion. So those are two active methods in which you can try to do it, but still the best way is to shut off your propeller if really that is where it comes down to. Because once your speed changes, your encounter frequency also changes. So just simply shutting off your engine will go a long way in preventing you from parametric excitation. But still, you will still experience considerable amount of roll in the meantime.
Okay, got it.
All right, if there are no more questions, let me stop recording now.